They woke the world to their magic, and their wizardry transcends time. Many have passed on, but their heroics live forever. On football's greatest stage, the gods of the game have earned their encore. Pelé, Beckenbauer, Cruyff, Maradona. Revered today by generations unborn when they weaved their spell. In the streets of South America, up laneways throughout Europe, on the dirt roads of any African village, the deeds of the past inspire the players of tomorrow. It's the cup of hope, the cup of dreams. It's football's biggest prize on the greatest stage of all. What Maradona is to Argentina, Pelé is to Brazil, or Cruyff is to Netherlands, so too is Franz Beckenbauer to Germany. For consistent excellence at World Cups, there's not a nation which can rival the Germans, and for all its great players down the years, none can come close to the influence of de Kaiser. Captain of the World Cup champions of 1974, coach of the World Cup champions of 1990. 3 times a World Cup All-Star, the first German to reach 100 caps, the only man to captain them to both World Cup and European Championship success. His list of achievements with Bayern Munich at club level include 4 Bundesliga titles and 3 successive European Cups. But it is football's greatest stage where he's immortalised. In 1966, Beckenbauer arrived in London as a 20-year-old wunderkind. Though he would make his name as a revolutionary defender, in those days he was a midfielder, and in the final of the World Cup was given the task of going head-to-head with England's greatest player, Bobby Charlton. Beckenbauer would blame himself for his team's defeat, saying Charlton was the better man on the day. But the young German won acclaim for his performance throughout the tournament, scoring 4 goals and was named in the All-Star team. By the time the next World Cup came around in Mexico, Beckenbauer had reinvented himself, moving to defence but retaining the attacking qualities that had served him well. The result was a pioneering role as a libero, launching attack from defence in an era when total football was in its infancy. His World Cup defeat had burned deep, but Franz Beckenbauer was ready to atone. His role on football's greatest stage continues after the break. Whether winning Bundesliga titles or European Cups with Bayern Munich, the European Championship with West Germany, or even later in his career, claiming 3 North American Soccer League titles with the New York Cosmos, Franz Beckenbauer always seemed ordained for success. It's just that it took a little longer on the World Cup stage. Defeat at Wembley Stadium in 1966 was a bitter pill, but Beckenbauer had performed well enough as a 20-year-old to ensure a brilliant future in the game. But he was determined to improve further. Even with a disappointing end to West Germany's 1970 campaign in Mexico, Beckenbauer's reputation was enhanced. Down 2-0 against the archenemy England in the quarter-final, It was a brilliant Beckenbauer goal at the 68th minute, which signalled the German fight back as they beat their 1966 conquerors 3-2 after extra time. Then in the semi-final against Italy, coach Helmut Schön used both permitted substitutes too early, and when Beckenbauer dislocated his shoulder after being fouled, he had to stay on the field. From the 67th minute, Beckenbauer played with his arm strapped in a sling. The Germans were down 1-0 but scored 3 goals, 2 of them in extra time. Trouble was, Italy scored 3 more as well to win 4-3 in a match described as the game of the century. Again, Beckenbauer was named in the All-Star team, this time as a defender, and his heroics were further recognised with his appointment in 1971 as captain of Die Mannschaft. In 1972, he led West Germany to a 3-1 win against England at Wembley and a 0-0 draw at the Olympiastadion in West Berlin to qualify for the European Championship finals, which they duly won. Then to the home World Cup of 1974 and the famous battle between Johan Cruyff's Netherlands and de Kaiser's West Germany. The 74 tournament was played under an unusual format. After the first group stage, 8 qualifiers played in 2 additional groups of 4, with the winners to meet in the final. Despite a 1-0 defeat at the hands of East Germany, the only time the 2 Germanys ever met before unification, Beckenbauer's men comfortably made it through to the second round and topped that group to set up the clash with the Dutchmen. The final began with Cruyff's famous run before being fouled inside the penalty area. Johan Neeskens converted before any West German had even touched the ball. But they kept up their pressure on Cruyff, Bertie Voits niggling him throughout, enabling Beckenbauer to control the game in his libero role. There were other German heroes too, like keeper Sepp Maier and striker Gerd Müller. But Beckenbauer was the one who held it all together, and in his 3rd tournament finally got to hold the World Cup trophy, albeit the new one, after the Jules Rimet had been handed permanently to Brazil after 1970. Cruyff nudged him out for player of the tournament and won his 3rd Ballon d'Or. But Beckenbauer finished 2nd, after his 3rd in 1966 and win in 1972. He would finish 2nd again in 1975, before his 3rd European Cup triumph with Bayern secured his 2nd win in 1976. At the time, his 5 placings in the Ballon d'Or were a record. At 31, Beckenbauer signed a big money deal to join Pelé in the US with the New York Cosmos and retired from the national team with a then record of 103 caps. He helped the Cosmos to 3 league titles and played a major role in the growth of the game's popularity before returning for a Bundesliga farewell with Hamburger SV. When he finally retired after one last season back with the New York Cosmos, Beckenbauer's decades of administration began with his appointment as coach of West Germany. It was a measure of the regard in which he was held, that such a powerful post would be assigned to a coaching novice, and yet he delivered. The Germans made it all the way to the 1986 final, falling only to Maradona's Argentina, and in 1990 Beckenbauer became only the 2nd man after Brazil's Mario Zagallo to hold the World Cup trophy as player and manager, and the only one to do it as captain and manager. The World Cup stage has had more colourful and more flamboyant performers, but for style, consistency, longevity, courage and deliverance, can anyone match the record of de Kaiser? These days, a World Cup event isn't complete without a mascot, but it wasn't always the case. The first furry fellow to feature on football's greatest stage was World Cup Willie in 1966. The English taking inspiration from their iconic and fearsome national symbol, the lion. Every World Cup from that point on has followed suit. Designers aiming in some way or another to make them symbolic of the host nation. Although how they're symbolic is often a little unclear. Mexico followed in 1970 with the sombrero-wearing Juanito. Then West Germany's boys Tip and Tap, Argentina's Gochito, until Spain went a little off plan with an orange named Naranjito. Mexico was back in 1986 with a jalapeno pepper named Piqué, no relation to Barcelona's Gerard. The stick figure of 1990 was named after the Italian greeting Ciao, and the US went back to basics with 1994's Striker, the World Cup pup. Footix was a cockerel for France '98. The South Korea-Japan partnership went futuristic, with the spheric trio of Atto, Kaz and Nick, while Germany 2006 invented Galileo 6 and his football sidekick Pele. In 2010, it was the leopard, an animal commonly found in South Africa, named Zakumi, with its green hair representing the country's sporting colours. The Brazilians also went with indigenous wildlife for the 2014 Brazil World Cup. The three-banded armadillo is only found in Brazil and is classified as vulnerable to extinction. This little one is named Ana Botafogo, by the way, after the great Brazilian ballet dancer. Designers morphed it into this cuddly character, Felico, a name derived from the Portuguese words football and ecologia, or football and ecology. Felico was everywhere in the lead up to Brazil, even showing up without his black tie at the 2012 Ballon d'Or ceremony in Switzerland. As they tend to do when staging a world event, the Russians took it to the next level. At the Circle of Light Festival in Moscow in September 2016, officials whipped the crowd into a frenzy over the three candidates in the running to become the face of Russia 2018. Of the three potential animals, Zabavaka the wolf defeated the cat and the tiger, with almost 53% of votes in a FIFA poll. Ronaldo was even on hand to welcome him into the new job. Zabavaka's name translates to goal scorer. So the World Cup mascot has become a truly international phenomenon. And we have World Cup Willie to thank for it. One nation has had an easy road to World Cup victory, playing only one group match and claiming the trophy without technically playing in a final. Do you know who? The answer up next, when we'll also look at one of Brazil's most respected captains and coaches, Dunga. In 1950, Uruguay had an easier path to World Cup victory than most. Turkey withdrew from the tournament after qualification, leaving Uruguay, Bolivia and France in a group of three. But when France also pulled out, it was down to two, Uruguay thrashing Bolivia 8-0 to advance with just one match. 1950 was also the only year when the Cup was decided with a second round-robin group of four, with the top of the group to win the trophy without a final. As it happened, the last match was the decider, Uruguay beating Brazil in perhaps the greatest upset ever. With the dual striking power of Luis Suarez and Edinson Cavani, Uruguay is an exciting team. But with recent World Cup troubles involving Luis Suarez in 2010 and Luis Suarez in 2014, it seems this South American nation is characterized by equal measures of brilliance and controversy. Which just goes to show not much has changed since the earliest days of football. Before Brazil or Argentina, Uruguay was the first real powerhouse of South American football, winning the first 2 Copa Americas and 5 of the first 8. It was the first South American team to contest Olympic football, winning consecutive gold at the Games of 1924 and 1928. So when the FIFA Congress was looking for a venue for a new international tournament in 1930, they chose Uruguay. The controversy raged. In the polis-economic climate of the era, many of the European federations did not want the cost and time of an uncomfortable voyage across the Atlantic Ocean. The first World Cup was to coincide with the centenary of Uruguay's first constitution after independence. And the nation's capital, Montevideo, had rushed to finish the new Estadio Centenario for the tournament. But 2 months out, not a single European nation had committed to attend. It was only after the intervention of FIFA President Jules Rimet that 4 European teams, Belgium, France, Romania and Yugoslavia, made the 2-week journey to join Mexico and the United States and 7 South American teams in a 13-nation tournament. With a team which included captain Jose Nazazi, goalkeeper Enrique Ballesteros and striker Pedro Che, Uruguay came from 2-1 down at half-time to beat Argentina 4-2 in the final. Jules Rimet presented the trophy, but for all the celebrations, Uruguay was stewing over the small number of visitors who attended the tournament. In response, they would boycott the 1934 tournament in Italy and the 1938 tournament in France, because neither host nation had bothered to come to them in 1930. And with the outbreak of World War II, their next appearance would not be until 1950. There in Brazil at the Maracanã, it will be 2 cups out of 2 for Uruguay, but this time not so much controversial as outright shocking. Brazil was raging favourite to win in front of a passionate home crowd, crushed into the stadium in numbers alleged to be close to 200,000. But it would be this man, Alcides Guihia, who became a celebrity in Uruguay and a villain in Brazil, with a left footer in the 79th minute to give the visitors a 2-1 victory. Guihia would make an emotional return to the Maracanã before the 2014 World Cup.
We are almost 64 years from the Maracanã victory. I remember it, but I don't speak anymore about the Maracanã because I have a lot of friends in Brazil who lived a very sad moment at that time.
He was also feted at the Estadio Centenario in Montevideo, the last survivor of Uruguay's triumph until his death in 2015. Eerily, 65 years to the day since his winning goal. Guihia used to say, "Only 3 people have silenced the Maracanã: the Pope, Frank Sinatra, and me." After the 3 World Cups of the Pelé era, Brazil would endure a 24-year absence from the final. Difficult to fathom, but it took something special to lift them from the abyss in 1994. Brazil had brilliance, Romario and Bebeto up front, but their rock was Carlos Caetano Bladorn Vieri, the 30-year-old defensive midfielder better known as Dunga. Dunga's leadership credentials were on display from an early age, as he led Brazil's under-20 squad to a World Cup win in 1983. It was the breakout performance that proved his worth. Regular international call-ups, including a silver medal at the 1984 Olympic Games, entrenched Dunga in the Brazilian squad. But at the 1990 World Cup, he was targeted by the press for his supposedly slow, defensive and less than thrilling style of play. Out in the second round, it was the Seleção's worst showing on football's greatest stage since 1966. The press dubbed the period Era Dunga. But coach Carlos Alberto Pereira stuck with him, and Dunga would lead Brazil through the 1994 World Cup finals after initial captain Ray was dropped. It proved a masterstroke, as Dunga's defensive prowess acted as an anchor for his team. The Seleção were sublime. Their only blemish, a draw in the group stages against Sweden, the side it would beat in the semi-final. The decider against Italy was an historic clash, the first final to be won on penalties after the two sides were locked at 0-0 after extra time. Of course, Dunga played his part as Brazil won 3-2 from the spot kicks. Although the Brazilians' next World Cup would end in a decisive 3-0 loss to France in the final, he was again named in the All-Star team and retired after the tournament with 91 caps. Just 2 years later, he turned down an offer to coach the side, but accepted in 2006, winning the Copa America, the Confederations Cup, as well as an Olympic bronze medal. He left after a surprise quarter-final exit in the 2010 World Cup, but was rehired to replace Luis Felipe Scolari after the horrific end to the 2014 World Cup. Brazil ousted 7-1 by Germany in the semi-final. Dunga's preparation for Russia 2018 started well enough, with a 2-0 defeat of Argentina in the 2014 Superclásico de las Américas. But they lost to Paraguay at the quarter-final stage of the 2015 Copa America. Even worse, in 2016, Brazil failed to qualify out of the group stage of the Copa America Centenario for the first time in 30 years, and he was fired. But Dunga's legacy was that he won Olympic medals as captain and coach, and he won both the Confederations Cup and Copa America as captain and coach. And most of all, as captain in 1994, he delivered for Brazil, standing tall on football's greatest stage. Still to come, a team banks on its goalkeeper in every match, and England could always bank on its number one. Football's greatest stage is a catalyst for heroics, and it can lift the world's best to greater heights. Gordon Banks, England's 1966 World Cup winning goalkeeper, lives that truism every day.
Gordon Banks, as always, superbly confident.
Banks began as a professional with Chesterfield, but Leicester City and Stoke City were where he carved out the bulk of his career. He made his international debut in April 1963. Between then and the World Cup, England lost just 3 of 32 matches with Banks in the net.
The nice part about it, to give us a little bit of confidence, was I think we'd gone something like round about 14 games without defeat. You know, we hadn't lost an international match, but it's gone something like that. It was round about that. So that helped just a little bit.
But there was no easy road to the Cup. England avoided 2-time defending champions Brazil, which failed to progress to the knockouts, but had to beat Argentina and Eusebio's Portugal to reach the final against Franz Beckenbauer's West Germany. Banks was epic throughout. It took a Eusebio penalty in the 82nd minute of the semi-final for him to concede a goal at the tournament, marking the end of a 721-minute unbeaten stretch in goals. And while he conceded twice in the final against the West Germans, a Geoff Hurst treble helped England hoist the Jules Rimet trophy for the first time. And it catapulted Banks to greatness. He won the FIFA Goalkeeper of the Year award in 1966. which would ignite a run of 6 straight years in which it would claim the honour. He was named in the 1966 All-Star team as well. And he created an all-star moment at the 1970 World Cup against eventual champions Brazil, producing a stunning save against Pelé in the group stages. Pelé himself described it as the greatest save in the history of the game. They won't remember me for winning the World Cup. It'll be for that save, Banks said. England would be knocked out by West Germany in the quarter-finals, a match Banks missed due to illness, but he had nothing to worry about. The man who played such a profound role in England's first triumph on football's greatest stage. How could they forget?
Last couple, please.